Good afternoon, and welcome to another phenomenal version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your philosophical and philandering host, Voice of Doom. Alright, I'm going to do another diatribe because I wanted to do a little coda on one of my last few diatribes that I forgot to talk about that I find interesting. And I don't know what all these things flying around are, but weird things happening. But I wanted to talk about something that happened when I was doing that industrial band, that we wanted to be the worst and we turned out to be not too bad, and people kind of liked us because we were kind of off the wall. But a little thing happened that I find interesting, that when you are a small time celebrity, small fish in a small pond, you get the chance to actually meet up with people that you would never expect to meet, and never expect to actually have in your apartment. Now, there was a band back in the 80s that were one of the pioneers of thrash punk. And this band was called the Dead Kennedys. And when I was first heard about them, I was heavily into Kansas and Queen and Steely Dan, and I wasn't into punk at all, and I thought, that's a pretty outrageous name for a band. And I didn't think anything about it. I just thought it was kind of disrespectful. But as it turned out, the new wave band I was in, cover band, played like 5 or 6 Dead Kennedy songs because they're fun to play. And we played Kill the Poor and Stealing People's Mail and Police Truck and a bunch of other songs. I can't remember, but a lot of fun songs. And the songs were very offensive. And what turns out, the lead guy in the Dead Kennedys was a guy named Jello Biafra. And he came to Oahu in '86 on his spoken word tour. And the band didn't come. He was just coming, and he lectured on a stage about his plights with the government, because the powers that be were coming after him because of obscenity accusations about his albums. And it had nothing to do with the songs. It had to do with a poster that was inside the album. It was by H.R. Geiger, which you might know from Alien, very famous artist who does weird stuff. But he was doing a spoken word tour, and we went and saw it, and he kind of said something that was really outrageous on his face, and he said, "I'm glad the Challenger blew up, the space shuttle." And we were like aghast, like, you're just trying to, get us all riled. But he said, the reason I think that is because the next shuttle was going to have nuclear weapons on it to be deployed. And he was glad that the Challenger blew up, because if not, we would have gone on with the program unabated and probably deployed nuclear arms into space. And that could have caused a big brouhaha if that blew up, and nuclear fallouts falling all over the planet. Okay, so he made his point. But after the show, we went up and we said, hey, we have a industrial band. We're going to play a gig tonight at this club. And if you want to come see it, come see it. And he's like, yeah, I want to come see it. And he came to see the band because, these guys like to, be out in public And you don't often have Jello Biafra in Hawaii. And it was a big deal. Okay, so we played and we did a parody concert. It was right during this crash of the stock market, so we dressed up in business suits and we had all these phones and answering machines and computers that were all broken on a table, and we were smashing them up, and we were all having a cow about the stock market and thrashing and, slam dancing and doing all kinds of weird stuff. So after the show, Jello says, yeah, I like you guys. You guys are, original and different. And I said, well, and I talked about the fact that I had a alternative music store that went bankrupt, and I had all these records in my house, and I said, you want to come over and check them out? He wanted to come over and check out the records, so I got a bunch of people together, because it's like Jello Biafra is coming to my apartment, and so we were all there, and he bought some records. He gave me a check with his name Eric Butcher on it, because that's his real name. These guys, they have stage names, but they still have their real names. And the fact is he's not anything like he portrays on stage. Who's kind of a wild person who's a little bit violent and singing songs about crushed little kids and Cambodia, holiday in Cambodia, and killing, kill the poor and all these other songs. He was very unassuming and quiet, and he didn't even like being in the center of attention too much. He just sat there on the couch and enjoyed the party, and we were smoking a lot of weed, and I offered him a doobie, and he's like, no, I don't want to smoke right now because the powers that be are after me, and I don't want to give them any reason to arrest me. So he was a little paranoid, but just found it interesting that a major force in 80s music would be in my apartment, just hobnobbing. Another experience that most people don't get to have. Now, I'll get off that subject now, but I will say this, that there's a lot of natural phenomena going on this planet. Volcanoes, earthquakes, floods. And now I hear tell that there's some solar flares on their way in the next few days to wreak havoc. And whether it does or doesn't remains to be seen, but I did notice that the radio that I listened to in the car was going in and out, and I'm always suspicious when that happens. And I heard that like 5,000 planes were grounded because of interference in their software. So, these solar flares could, cause a Carrington event, which could wipe out our grid. But I wanted to talk about the environment a bit, and I wanted to expound on a little term in Buddhism called Esho Funi. And that is a term meaning the oneness of life and its environment, or the oneness of man or mankind or humankind and its environment, that we're tied together. But instead of trying to explain it, I'm going to bore you a bit, and I'm going to read out of this book called Fundamentals of Buddhism, because it's easier to just explain it this way. Now, it's going to be hard to understand, so you might have to listen to this video a few times. But life and its environment. The relationship between human life and its environment is explained in terms of Esho Funi. Esho is the combination of the first syllables of Eho and Shoho. Shoho means the living subjects, or something which performs activities associated with life, while Eho is the object, that which supports Shoho. Shoho denotes a living being, and Eho its environment on which it is dependent for its life activities and survival. Neither can exist apart from each other. Since Funi means two in phenomena, but not two in nomenon, Esho Funi means that life and its environment are two independent phenomena, but one in their fundamental essence. Man and his environment are inseparable, but Esho Funi as a concept goes further than denoting just the inseparable relationship between the two. Many people today feel somehow out of kilter with their environment, which seems to result only in unhappiness. But it's mankind as a whole that has gone against the rhythm of the natural world, polluting it and causing stress that has only begun to manifest its consequences in the environment. Esho Funi is a principle that shows how people can influence and reform their environment through interchange, or the elevation of their life condition, contained within the idea that just as the environment influences the individual can affect change in the environment. So in other words, if we all get our lives together and work together for peace and harmony, the earth would calm down. We are integrated with and live in harmony with our environment. In turn, we form our own unique existence in accordance with the laws of individualization. And each one of us shapes an individual environment that is compatible to himself. In other words, everybody's environment is different. You could be an Eskimo in Alaska, or you could be in the Kalahari, or you could be an Aborigine, or you could be in the inner city. We all have different environments, individual. Okay, now, but the formation of one's environment must coincide with the emergence of one's life in this world. A person cannot appear without an environment, simply floating in space. Each of us has an environment, however, and all are essentially distinct, so we all relate to our surroundings differently. The way we see the environment differs depending on our life condition and circumstances. So one person could be in the inner city and be going to a Broadway play and then a nice dinner afterwards, and that another person in that same inner city could be in the alley, slumped. An environment is a reflection of the inner life of the individual living within it. It takes on characteristics which accord with the life condition of the person in question. In other words, life extends its influence into the surroundings. Rioting, leaving garbage all over the place, mayhem. The principle of Ichinen Sanzen includes the oneness of life and its environment. In terms of the three realms, Shoho corresponds to the realm of the five components of living beings, and Eho to the realm of the environment. If we analyze the individual living being, its consciousness is Shoho, and the other four are the five components: form, or body, perception, conception, volition. That's the components of life. We have a body, we have a perception of what we see, we conceive an idea of how to deal with that, and we take action with volition. He's all brilliant. Work to make it interact with other living beings, all those around us. So you might have one person killing somebody else, and they're affecting their environment, and the natural environment, which together form Eho. Ichinen Sanzen reveals that both Shoho and Eho are inherent in a single moment of life. Thus, Eho is essentially contained within a living being itself. In other words, our environment is in us. The Buddhist concept of life must be understood as encompassing both Shoho and Eho, and thus, in a deeper sense, Shoho and Eho are one and inseparable. So we're causing these volcanoes to erupt, and we're causing these solar flares to come at us, and we're causing the floods. Even if we're not individually causing the floods, somebody out there is. And we're causing the earthquakes, even though it's natural phenomena, our life condition on this planet is making things go bad. And nature's a very big thing. I was in the Northridge earthquake, and it's terrifying when it keeps going and you don't know when it's going to stop. But I thought that would be something for you to think about now. I want to just do a little ending about something that happened yesterday at work, because it was kind of amusing and funny. We were doing our job. Now at our work, we have a very complicated menu, and it's huge. And we have these little computers in our hand that we put our orders in. And if they want to add something, or they want to change something, or want to do this or that, the computer tells you what, the price is going to be. And it puts it all in there and itemizes it. So as an observer, we don't sit there and worry about adding or subtracting if they want extra mushrooms on their pizza. But it turns out that all the computers in the whole restaurant went down, all of them. Every one of us in our hand had a computer that didn't work, and all the computers around the restaurant didn't work. And we gave it 5 or 10 minutes, and then we realized it wasn't coming back on. And so the manager went to the office and quickly assembled little packets for us with pieces of paper like you see in an old-time restaurant, and little slips that you use to write down credit card numbers, and a stapler and all this other stuff. And it's like, here, take the orders by hand, give the orders to the cooks, and then itemize everything and add it up, and then when they give you a credit card, you put the number and write it in, and you get their expiration date and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, all right. The Zers and the millennials were having a conniption. They were comatose. They looked at their pile of paper and said, I can't do this. I mean, nobody knows even the prices of things on the menu because it's all on the computer. Now you have to take the order, worry about all their little modifications, and then write the price, and then add it up by hand, and then get the payment. And if it's a credit card, you got to write the credit card number. Well, I went to my tables and I said, we have a little snafu, and it might be a little delay on everything because our computers are all down. And one table said, well, I don't worry about it, I already paid. They paid with their phone. And I'm like, cool. I went to the manager and said, people can pay with their phone. And so that was a relief for a lot of people, but everything went well for me because sometimes I'm in rhythm, and I actually kind of had fun with it because I was joking around how these Zers and stuff are just absolutely losing it because they don't know what the hell to do. They can't add up a column of numbers, let alone figure out how much everything is, and forget about modifications and all that crap. Come on. Everybody's grabbing menus and they're trying to figure out what the price of everything is. And my timing was perfect because all my tables were either pretty much done, or by the time, it just worked out well for me. Sometimes I have that kind of luck. But I realized, and I was laughing at these guys because they didn't have the slightest. I mean, people were actually saying, I'm out of here, I'm quitting. I can't do it. It's just too much. And I'm like, yeah, it might be too much, but if we have to do it, we have to do it. And the computers came back on after about 30 minutes, so everything was well. But I found it amusing to see them flounder and flop around like fish on a hot deck when the computers went down. So if we have a Carrington effect, you watch what happens. I can see a lot of Gen Zers and millennials wandering aimlessly down the street with their phone in front of them going, please, 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 please. I can see it happening, and I'm going to love every minute of it. I'm going to laugh my head off because I got a full bottle of rum and Coke, and if we get a Carrington effect, I'll be set for a while. So I think I gave you a lot to think about there. The oneness of humankind and their environment plays a big role in why we're seeing what we're seeing. And I'll talk more about this later because I have more to say, but I don't have time to say it. So, good afternoon and enjoy the day, and let's hope we still have an infrastructure and a grid by tomorrow. Goodbye.